And in verse 32, he says, if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? If you're only willing to invest love to those who are close to you, those who that you get along with, those who will be your friend, those who will share their toys, those who will invest in you. He says, don't just do that. He says, love your enemies. Because you see, if you only love those who love you, what credit is that? Anyone will do that. I had a teacher in school that would teach on this, and he'd say, even the mafia does that. As long as you do what they say, what they want, as long as you please them, you're fine. But if you cross the line and no longer are their friends and become their enemies, then you're in trouble. Even sinners, he goes on to say there in verse 32, even sinners love those who love themselves, who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those who, from whom you expect repayment, is that really anything else except for an investment expecting a return? And you might say, well, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with expecting a return. But if we base our lives on what we are receiving, in other words, we'll only give because we know we're going to give back. We're going to get back. We will only invest our emotions in something if we know that it's going to pay off in the long run. What are we receiving? That's the question that we want to ask, that we want the answer to. If we only invest in that satisfies, if we only invest in what we expect to get back, if we live our lives only on the basis of what we are receiving, I think life will be frustrating for us. We'll become disgruntled. We'll become distressed and depressed. And there are times when we say, well, no one cares about me anyway, so I'll just quit. And sometimes we quit life. Sometimes we quit the church. Sometimes we just hold back and say, I'm not going to give that person the time of day because I know I won't get it back. I know I won't receive what I'm expecting. But if we see ourselves as an opportunity to invest in the kingdom of God, when will we receive the return on that investment? If we invest in relationships, will we get burned because we've invested ourselves, we've invested time and energy and attention, invested ourselves into a relationship that just doesn't pan out? What about the church? Are we willing to invest in the church, in the body of the church, in the unity of the church, in the mission of the church? All of those things are vital parts of our investment of ourselves into the lives of other people. To invest in the people around us. Life is not intended to just live it in a vacuum, to be lived in what we are receiving. Life is intended to give. The abundant life, I believe, that Jesus has called us to enjoy, promises that there will be reward. It may not be immediate. But that life is intended to be lived in what we offer, in what we give, in how we serve. Because you see, if we are only waiting for what we receive, there will be frustration. There will be the tendency to not be involved in life at all. But if we find ways to give, one of the best ways of anyone that might be dealing with depression or anxiety or any of those things, one of the best ways to come out of that depression is by getting involved in and investing in the lives of someone else. Jesus calls us to be that way. Not only to receive all that he gives, but then to take the blessings that we receive from him and offer those blessings to other people. Sacrificial love. Unconditional love. All of those wonderful things that only come from God are things that we can, in turn, take those blessings from God and give them to one another. The reward, you may not be able to say you were able to do that only to your friends. If you are willing to give to your enemies, the return may not be immediate. But at the same time, it'll be eternal. Because you see, it's what we give, not what we receive. The Lord has always said it is more blessed to give than to receive. So that's our challenge this week. Find someone to invest in. And it may not be your best friend. May not be your closest family member. It may not be the person that you just love to be around. Maybe it's that person that just gets on your last nerve that you can invest in. Invest in the grace and the mercy that you have received. In the love, the unconditional, eternal love that you've received from God. And turn that and give it to other people. Invest. And we will have a great return. And that's exactly what he goes on to talk about. He says if we only invest in those that we know we're going to get payment from, there's no reward in that. The reward is when we know that we're doing it for the right reason, because God has called us to be that way and to extend that quality to other people. This evening, we all are recipients of an unconditional love, unconditional gift called grace and salvation. And we have that at our disposal all the time. And if you're not a Christian, you can take advantage of that this evening by coming to Christ through your obedience. But if you are a Christian, please understand that the gifts that you've received are not just to be held and enjoyed selfishly, but to be invested in the lives of other people. If you need to respond to the invitation of Jesus this evening, we invite you to come as together we stand and sing.